welcome to our new how-to video series. My name is Maria, and with us today it's Greg Talone, CEO from Continuity Centers and BEAM Certified Engineer. With us today it's also Walter Price III, Senior Recovery Engineer and BEAM Certified Engineer. We hope you enjoy and learn from our new video series, and please don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to our channel.
Excellent. So the first screen I'm going to bring up for this quick walkthrough is one of our demo appliances. So I wanted to give some background. We have a lot of customers, a lot of prospects ask exactly what it is that we use to do the BEAM backups, what kind of hardware we use, what do they have to buy, etc. So what I thought I'd do is go through the physical appliance, how it's set up, and how we include it as part of the service. So this is a demo server that we have in one of our data centers. And spec-wise, it has 0.5 terabyte of RAM. It has 2 NVMe SSD flash drives. One is 0.5 terabyte. The second one is 1 terabyte. You'll see that in a little bit. It has 2 processors with 16 cores each, so a total of 32 cores. It's got, what else? It has quantity, this model has quantity 36 of 12 gigabit per second SAS drives. We have 2 models depending on the size of the data set that we're going to be protecting. The other model has quantity 12 of those disks. Those are set up with multipath using Linux RAID, and I'll get into how that works in a few moments and why we do that. And as far as virtual machines, what runs on these are the Linux repository and the Windows backup and recovery server, what we call the BNR, and we'll log into them momentarily. You get to see what they look like as well. All right, so let's go into the physical hardware and what's inside of there. So we're going to go to hardware, and we're going to show this guy. And what we have in there, like I mentioned, was the 2 NVMe flash drives. The 0.5 terabyte one is where the Windows BNR virtual server resides, as well as the Linux virtual server, which is the Linux security hardened repository. We've actually been using a Linux security hardened repository for over a year now. Before it was even launched by BEAM, it was slightly different in that we didn't use a single use credential because they didn't have that capability yet. But now that they have that, that's what we've cut over all of our setups to. But essentially what we were doing is very similar. It's a Linux box that nobody has access to. It has SSH disabled. There's no remote access to the repository, and the only devices that can communicate with it are the servers that we're backing up. So the second one, what you'll notice here is it has pass-through active. And I'm going to get into why we do pass-through. We have pass-through here as well for, let me show you this. This is search on SAS. So here you go. So we have the dual SAS controller, and you'll notice that pass-through is active on both of them. What pass-through is in VMware, it's when you present those physical cards directly to a guest. And instead of that card being virtualized through the hypervisor level and having multiple virtual machines have access to it, when we do a pass-through, we're basically assigning that physical device to a single virtual machine, and no other virtual machines have access to it. You get better performance because you're skipping the hypervisor layer. The reason we do it for the SAS card is so that the 12 or the 36 drives that are inside of that server can be seen natively by the Linux repository. So we're not virtualizing any of the storage within the backups. The backups are being written to raw disks. You get a huge performance advantage on that. Those, incidentally, are configured with RAID 10 for the highest performance, the fastest rebuild times, and the least likely to have a disk failure when you're rebuilding a RAID set. The NVMe that we pass through is presented to the Linux repository as well, and we have that set up using Bcache. Bcache is basically, the way we have it set up, is it's set up as a read-only cache. So as the restores are running or as instant recoveries are running, which you'll see in some of our demos, as it's reading all of those backups from the repository, any data, any blocks that are used often, such as the OS, those blocks are getting written to the B cache and then being read from that NVMe flash rather than from the SAS drives. So you get even better performance when you're doing recoveries. So most of them have at least dual 10 gigabit NICs. They can do 10 base T, I'll start that one over. So most of the appliances have dual 10 gig NICs with 10 base T RJ45 copper, or we have them with SFP modules so that we can connect to your fiber backplane. Walter, what else do you want to talk about on the appliance?
That was a pretty thorough walkthrough on what we used to put it together. So I don't have anything else to add there.
Another thing I'm going to cover here, these run ESXi, as I mentioned before. We do not sell these appliances. We provide them as part of a managed service. So depending on the size of the data set we're protecting, depends on which appliance we're building. Essentially, they all have the same hardware except for the size of the disks, the amount of memory, and we build it based on each customer's requirements. And we own the device for the length of the relationship. We're fully responsible for managing this device from security updates, patches, etc. If anything goes wrong with hardware, we'll send out hardware next business day, swap it out. The customer pays $0 for this hardware. They pay $0 for any of the software on it. It's all included as part of the managed service. You can see with this one, we're running 6.7.0 update 3 with the latest patch for that. And I think that covers what we want to talk about for the appliance itself. So for the next video, let's jump into actually logging into Veeam and going over some instant recoveries.